Well, at this point, let's see if we can join Patriot Fowobi, who is on the line with us as usual to lend his deep wealth of knowledge into some of these conversations. A very good morning to you, Patriot. Thank you so much for finding the time to join us this Monday morning.
Good morning, TJK. It's always pleasure and wonderful moments with you guys.
Well, let's set things off. The NLC is threatening the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission with what it describes or described as a national uproar. We are not sure what this uproar is going to look like, but it is threatening this uproar should the commission go ahead with the upward review of remuneration for political office holders in the country. What do you make of this development, and what would you also make of the NLC and other groups, political parties, pressure groups, and individuals who have lent in their voice to this particular matter?
For choosing that's today's conversation with this all important discussion and conversation that is going on in the country. Ever since it was hinted and it gets to the public that the federal government, through its agency, Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal, is planning a review, an upward review of the salary and wages of political office holder. It has actually generated a lot of controversy, of which is one of the reasons why we are looking at it and to even commence our discussion this morning on that note. So I want to say once again, thank you for bringing this on board. You see, it is very, very unfortunate that in a country where we have had a wide gap between the half and a very large gap between the half not. What I'm saying in simple terms is that a country where there is a large gap between the rich and the poor, and you can see on daily basis the controversy that this class struggle has generated in the country, which has led to even hatred between the have-nots towards the rich people. For so many years, we are living in an imbalanced society where people no longer, where especially people who are perceived to be half, people who are perceived to be rich, are no longer free to associate with people in the same community because of fear of unknown, fear of what could be exercised by these poor people. You see, the gap, you see that the discrimination, the gap is too wide. And then it has generated a lot of argument over the years that even some politicians have called that they are going to reduce their salary to offset some of the frustration experienced by the poor people. So it is for me disappointing and surprising at the same time to find out that why some politicians, some political elected politicians have been talking about reducing their salary. We even saw the National Assembly going off 50% of their salary to cushion the effect of poverty in Nigeria.
But was that eventually done, and was that effective? Did it have any effect on the common man? I think that should be the
Two
focal
questions
the
you have
focal
raised.
point of
Was
this
it done?
particular
Yes.
comment.
Was it done? Yes. But how much effect does it have on the poor people? I won't be able to say. I don't even know. Because we are talking about large gap between the rich and the poor. And some of this little effect by the National Assembly and some quarters may not make any significant change to the lives of the common people because the margin is too wide. So therefore, you may not be able to see much impact that it makes on the people. But the truth, the point, the question this morning is it even necessary in the first instance? A country where government workers earn partly 70,000 minimum wage, which has not even properly converted in all states, that still manages to pay that 70,000 minimum wage. While some states even slash salary of some of their employees. And yet, today, revenue mobilization is talking about upward review. This will be met with total disagreement. It will be met with collapse. A lot of people will meet this with frustration, and that may not see the light of the day. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that it is not expected at this material time.
Now, Patriot Desmond, this particular matter concerning an upward review of remuneration of political office holders is included in an overall, revenue review, not just, the salaries. It is part of a broader decision to review other things as well in the 2025 revenue by RMAFC. Sometime last week, we had a guest here in the studio whose opinion as to this matter was the fact that perhaps the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission does not actually want to carry on with this review. So this statement about an upward review of salaries of political office holders is just a way of stirring up emotions or stirring up anger in Nigerians so that the entire review generally will even be dropped, almost like a decoy. These were the words of our guest here in the studio. Are you also sharing the same thoughts, or do you have an entirely different opinion as regards to this matter?
Chijuke, you and I have been long in this business of journalism, and then we know some of these things. We know what it is about some of these things.
Yeah.
So nobody can call black to us as whites, unless if we don't choose to allow the sleeping dog to lie. Take it or leave it. At the end of the day, I totally disagree with your guest.
Why so, Patriot Desmond?
I totally disagree with your guest that this is just to raise emotions. No, it's not to raise emotions. There were grand plans to review the salaries of political public holders. And that came as a result of the increment in some other factors like cost of living. And some of these politicians, some of these public holders, and even if you listen to the Mohammed, if you listen to the chairman of that commission, you can also hear some of the reasons for the increment. Part of the reason for looking forward to reviewing the salaries of political office holder is so that they can meet up their obligation, so that their life, so that they can improve their own quality of life, so they can be able to deliver the dividend of government to the people. Because it is only when the public officers are okay, or that they are okay, their needs are met, that is when they can carry on their own legitimate work judiciously. That was his point. And they don't like anybody to deceive you that this is just a move to raise emotions of the people. It is not. In short, there were committees, there were arrangements on ground to look at their salaries and to see how they can improve it so that they can be able to function efficiently and effectively. Because it is only when somebody is mentally happy, somebody is mentally okay, that he can perform his duty efficiently. Those were the reasons, part of the reasons for the upward review of this salary. And let me tell you, if we must be sincere to ourselves as people, you will find out that issues don't make news round when there are no major force behind them.
Yeah.
There are a lot of meetings you see that goes on in government parastatals, in the presidency, in different agencies and government institutions that never gets to the media. The reason is because they do not hold strong weight. But this particular review of the salary of political office holder is one that have the interest of power that be. And Nigeria must resist this totally.
Now, Patriot Desmond, let me also have you react to a statement made by the NLC where they noted that this particular proposal, of course, is coming when civil servants in the country continue to face salary stagnation, except for the recent minimum wage increment that we saw take place in the country. Now, with a 70,000 naira minimum wage still in operation, despite rising costs of living, the NLC noted that the last wage review for civil servants was less than 50%. Meanwhile, political office holders reportedly enjoyed increments exceeding 800%. There is a very wide gap and astronomical margin between the 50% increment in wages, minimum wage, for the ordinary or the common civil servant. Meanwhile, political office holders enjoy almost 1,000% increase in salaries, in benefits, allowances, and other things. Is this fair? In all honesty, I just want to get your point.
This is totally unacceptable in a sane society where the people in position of privilege thinks about the constituents. In a sane society, nobody should be talking about the already influential people in the society. Let me tell you the truth. Even if it is councillor or a local government chairman position that you held as a public servant, as a politician, you see that the gap between you and other members in your constituents is always very wide. That is to tell you that political appointees or elected officials are well taken care of against the will, against the rest of the people in the community. Presently, I'm not talking about whether any review has taken place or not. As of today, if you look at politicians, they have become like a role model to the young people. And that is why everybody, without really understanding what it takes to be a politician, wants to go into politics. And their motivation is because of the legacy, because of the kind of life politicians live at the mercy of the people, at the mercy of the taxpayer money. Most politicians do not even contribute to the productivity of some of this community or constituents they represent. Now, to put it in proper perspective, there are so many governors, so many senators, so many House of Representatives, so many chairmen, so many councillors that do not really deserve the legacy, the salary, or what they are earning from government coffers. The kind of protection, the kind of life they are exposed to at their assumption of any political office is unimaginable compared to their productivity level. Shijoke, I tell you, if you are to pay leaders or pay office holder, public office holder, politicians, according to their productivity level, some of them ordinarily should earn less than teachers. Some of them should earn.
So is it safe to say that the system has been rigged in a certain way where, in as much as there are a lot of political office holders who continue to do wonderfully well for their constituents, represent their constituents in very amazing ways, give their constituents the dividends of democracy, we still have others who are hiding under the shadow of these good politicians who are delivering what they are supposed to deliver to their constituents, yet they do not do anything, they do not take action, they enjoy the benefits, yet they don't do the work.
Well, Karl Marx and other sociologists and other political scientists have made us to understand, even Thomas Hobbes in their positions have made us to understand that the greed has eaten deep into human nature. You see, these laws and modern society is giving us this impression that human is rational in behavior. Naturally, human beings are not rational. Human beings are irrational beings. And that is why you see that there are a lot of laws, a lot of modification, a lot of structural adjustment that has not eliminated the human nature in every human. Human, according to this imagery of the animal world, like the animal kingdom, that human being needs are insatiable. So you can't tell me that there are good politicians and there are bad politicians. There are no good politicians, sir. There are no bad politicians. What we have is bad system and bad societal norms. A lot of people today, what they prioritize because of the society they are coming in from, makes them look like they are bad politicians. Now, there is no bad politician. Let me tell you something. These politicians today, they actually emulated some older politicians. Just like I was trying to proceed, I was trying to explain that a lot of young people today, their motivation for joining politics is so that they can live the life that politicians are living today.
But there are also some young people who are in politics who are making a difference. Rather than eyeing the money, they are actually eyeing for change. They are eyeing to make positive change in their society, and they're doing it. Young people in different houses of assemblies in different states, young people at the National Assembly, talking about the House of Representatives. There are even young senators who are still doing absolutely well when it comes to, Nigeria's politics.
What do you mean by doing absolutely well?
When I talk about doing absolutely well, I'm talking about adequate representation, political representation of their people at the houses of assembly or at the National Assembly.
Are in this country, Chijoke, listen. You and I are in this country, and we heard that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, by one of the House of Representatives member, that this is the first time in the history of this 10th assembly that a rep member gets up to 1 billion for his constituency project, and some senators get up to 2.5 billion, 2 billion. Now, I want you to take a cursory look at some of the projects they deliver to their people across Nigeria. Does it really represent that figure that is being quoted? Among the ones you describe as good and bad. Now let me tell you, why you say some politicians are good is because maybe they invest in certain infrastructure.
Now, Patriot Desmond, this 1 billion naira allocation could also. Okay.
Let me explain something to you, Chidoke.
Okay.
When you say good politicians, see, there are no bad politicians. I'm a politician.
I never mentioned good politicians. I talked about adequate representation. The morality of a politician is not a business we can discuss. The morality of anybody is not a business we can ascertain or vouch for. However, whether you are good, whether you are bad, as long as there is adequate representation of your people, of your constituents, be it at the House of Assembly, be it at the National Assembly, be it at the governorship level, local government level, councillorship level, whatever level it is, as long as there's adequate representation, that is what matters to Nigerians. And I believe there are so many of them. A lot of these politicians who adequately represent their people in all, strata of political life across the country?
Shijoke, I beg to differ, but I want you to also understand my perspective. What we are discussing here, we are not discussing the principles of good governance. We are only talking about justification for certain remuneration that is allocated or allotted to politicians. And I say that while we may have, in your words, good politicians, young politicians that have represented their constituency very well, I am also of the opinion that some of them are doing that representation on a wrong system or a wrong foundation. For example,
well, Patriot Desmond, we hope that eventually individuals much like yourself who are very patriotic to Nigeria and want the best for Nigerians will eventually venture into politics and sweep out those bad eggs within the system and make a change alongside the already performing political office holders who are holding offices and doing wonderfully well for their people. Let's quickly move on to yet another topic.
What is the business of a rep? What is the business of a senator getting about 2 billion, 1 billion?
Well, that is left for the RMAFC to defend, which I believe they are doing.
A lot of systematic problem in
the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission is already defending some of these funds. Well, Patriot Desmond, it's best we move on to yet another issue. We don't have a lot of time. There's quite a lot of topics to cover. The House of Representatives, we hear, is questioning or querying the NERC over the utilization of a whopping 59 billion naira metering funds. Now, this is over some questions that have been raised as to what these funds were used for. There is still a shortfall of metering. The metering gap we have always spoken about here on the show is still there. Yet 59 whole billion naira was, pumped and injected into the NERC in order to cover this gap. What do you make of this? And are we still going to blame the system? Are we still going to blame the allocation of the money? Or are we going to blame individuals who continue to falter and play foul by the system?
Chijoke, I think every situation deserves proper analysis and investigation to know who exactly should be blamed. In the case of metering, there are offices responsible for that. It is quite pathetic. We've been talking about metering in order to curb corruptions and these estimated billings that the funds are normally diverted into wrong projects and into wrong hands. You see, one of the major problem to correct in order to solve the issue of corruption around electrification in Nigeria is to meter each home. Today, let me use Ekpe for example. I'm calling in from Ekpe this morning. I did the research and I realized that not up to 10% of houses in these houses have a meter. Less than 5% of houses in Ekpe generally have a meter. And then each house in Ekpe, you can imagine the thousands of people paying to NEPA. Each house are meant to pay more than 15,000 naira every month, whether you enjoy electricity or you do not have access to electricity. As long as you have a house in Ekpe, you're paying 15,000 naira. Multiply by the number of houses in Ekpe, where is that money going into? Lack of accountability is one of the major problems we're having in our system. Nobody is responsible for paying for this lack of accountability. And that is why it's like thriving. You post in somebody, you cannot do what they call evaluation of their services in order to know whether you give them a kudos or a knock. Anybody does whatever they feels like. So that is why we have to look at the system. You have to look at the individual. We have to look at the people. We need to do a country look into this area to know who is to be blamed. We are allotting billions. Imagine 59 billion naira for metering. Where are the meters, Chijoke? In short, do you know that there is nobody in Nigeria today that gets a meter as of today that pay less than 100,000? Where is that money? Now, government is giving you 59 billion to meter homes, and homes were paying even more to even get this meter.
Now, Patriot Desmond, in as much as we are, calling out the irregularities of how the 59 billion naira was managed, I think it's pertinent we also name out the distribution companies that have taken this loan from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, despite documents from the NERC showing that electricity distribution companies, namely Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, Eko Electricity Distribution Company, Enugu Electricity Distribution Company, Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, Ikeja Electricity Distribution Company, Jos Electricity Distribution Company, Kano and Yola Electricity Distribution Companies are all owing the CBN for disbursements made to them to install these meters, yet NERC has not verified the installation of these meters. Now the simple question is, where is this loophole coming from? Is this loophole coming from the distribution companies? Is this loophole coming from the managers? Is this loophole coming from the boots on ground to ensure that every single home in Nigeria is metered and to cover this gap? Where is the problem stemming from? Because it appears 59 whole billion naira cannot just vanish into thin air without proper documentation as to whether or not these funds were used for the proper metering purposes that they were supposed to be used for.
I believe strongly that the money, the funds, were not properly used, and the umpire responsible for giving out these funds have not done justice by trying to question. You see, you cannot give me money. You cannot give me money for something, and if you are just, if you're not corrupt as well, you won't ask questions on how I utilize that money before you give me more money. So I also want to blame the CBN. I want to blame the institution providing this fund. You don't give funds without asking for accountability. A lot of these distribution companies are highly corrupt. And that is why we introduce meter in order to curb those corruptions. As the issuance of this meter actually solves the problem of corruption in terms of what is being generated from that sector? No. What is the reason? Because of the failure of these distribution companies to adequately provide meter. Even the process, Chijoke, you need to do an investigation into the process of acquiring meter, the process of this distribution of this meter, the process of even distribution of this electricity. Now, thanks to the minister's idea of distributing light in bands in order to generate more money. Do you know that if not for this classification into bands, more people that are not enjoying this electricity even pay more? We've had the cases of people in position of privilege, organizations owing to these distribution companies. So this corruption is in layers. This corruption is in layers. And that is why I would like to use the word. It is a systematic problem that requires a systematic and multifaceted solutions, from the CBN to the distribution companies and to some of the staffs, some of the employees of some of these distribution companies. But I want to applaud the reps for this query. It is necessary for the reps to actually, because Individual like me, the civil society, the journalists, if you move to action, you may not be accorded that respect or the freedom of information for you to even assess the people that are responsible for these organizations. They won't even provide you all the necessary information you need. But the reps, the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, the Senate, they are the legitimacy and jurisdiction to actually question this NERC in order to find out what has happened to all the money collected so far to meter homes and how far have they gone, and then give instruction on whether to further give the money or to request for proper accountability on how the money collected is being used.
All right, Patriot Desmond, quite very strong calls you have made there concerning the reps query of NERC. Hopefully, within the coming weeks, we will have headway concerning what the 59 billion naira was used for. Let's move on to yet another matter of concern and discuss this morning. It's about the sick and stranded in Nigeria. Despite a presidential order, we hear that the prices of medication, drugs in Nigeria continue to soar. Now, this is also talking about essential medicines being unaffordable despite tax waivers. Meanwhile, pharmacies continue to struggle with a weak naira. How much of a problem, how much of an endemic is this to our healthcare system? The ordinary Nigerian can barely afford to get access to proper medication that used to cost far less than they do now.
Nigeria is a wonderful country, and Nigerians are wonderful people. Nigeria is the only country where anything that goes up never comes down. You see, the Newton law of gravity posited that whatever goes up comes down. But in Nigeria, no matter the mechanisms or the instrumentality used in trying to pull whatever goes up in terms of inflation down, it's usually not provided the expected result. And that is why in the first place, the managers of our economy must be on top of their game to understand the peculiarity of our society. Most Nigerians are doing quite fine in order to contribute to growth of this country. But some privileged ones, some bad eggs, are always struggling with the system or the society to bring this country down. Some of these people are these businessmen. Businesses should always have human face. We should always think about our country first. Think about the future of Nigeria first before you talk about business. In this 21st century, the concept of business is now being rewritten to show that you have to think about impact first before profit. Yes, government is doing a lot in trying to give you tax holiday, waiver, and sort of a subsidy to support the importation and production of drugs. But you find out that it only ends between the federal government and the individual businesses responsible to actually translate the waiver they are getting from government, the tax holiday, and the subsidy for their production. It ends there. And that is why, as a government, we need to be highly responsive to our societal need. Yeah. First, you need to understand the people you're governing. A lot of people without monitoring team. When you set up something, you need to monitor it. Look at what happened during last year when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu gave instructions that millions of grain should come into Nigeria. Do you know how long it took? It took more than 9 good months. It took about 10 months before that pronouncement.
Or the order was actually put to action. So it's about a delay in delivery, not a delay in the
It is
pronouncement
because
of the president.
we do not have individual that is saddled with the task force. Let me use the word task force. When you want implementation, the laws are not the problem. Nigeria has beautiful laws, beautiful policies, but what we lack is implementation. And in order for you to have efficient implementation of some of these directives and policies, you need to have individual that is saddled with the responsibility to monitor that policies or that procedure of government to ensure that it gives back the dividends to the people. Let me give you an example. We have Standard Organization of Nigeria that is not standardizing the product in Nigeria. What do you make of that? Is it lack of fund to that institution or levity on their own side?
Well, Patriot Desmond, some of these high prices and surge in the prices of commodities like pharmaceutical drugs and medications and all is somehow tied to the recent exit of big pharma companies from Nigeria. You know about them, the likes of GSK and the rest exited the country, and their products that were very or are still very essential to the livelihoods and the health of a lot of Nigerians who are struggling with certain health conditions. These prices went through the roof. Some went as high as 500%. Somebody who is already struggling to buy a particular medication for 1,000 naira is now being forced to buy it at 5,000 naira or even 10,000 naira. It is quite a very huge problem. Now, if we are going to talk about this, what is a streamlined and viable solution to this? Are we going to ask the companies to come back to Nigeria, or are we going to create an enabling environment first to attract them back into the country?
Shijoke, let me say this. You see, when you do not do the right thing, whatever effort you put into what you are doing will be an effort in futility. The Nigerian government is doing a lot in terms of ensuring that big companies that you mentioned stays and contribute to the country's growth. But don't forget that there were times of disagreement that you cannot be in Nigeria only doing business to make money, making money and taking outside the shores of this country. You're making money, you're not imparting life, you're not investing in the country economy to grow. Government of Nigeria, as regarding health sector, pharmacy, production, government, this policy, let me even tell you, I see no reason why companies will be moving out of Nigeria if they truly have the genuine intention of this country at heart. The reason is because the economy of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is made in order to favor producers. Yes.
So why do they continue to exit? I mean, their exit didn't start from this administration, by the way. It started even from the past administration, where there were concerns about
anybody want to tell us it is
sabotage on the part of who?
On the part of certain world influence.
So an international interference with
let me even
how our manufacturing industry works.
In Nigeria are not controlled by Nigeria. The likes of Shell, the likes of Ajib, the likes of most of the big companies you see. And that is why we talk about neo-colonialism. You see these big wigs, these big nations have invested so much in all these small African countries. Let me use the word developing countries.
Yeah.
The third world country, like they usually call them. To the point that they control the economy of this country. They control IMF and the World Banks and these big nations. They control the economy of smaller countries through different means. They even force their own policy on you because they don't do that directly. They do that through the power of economy, because they control your economy, because they own most of the major businesses, the conglomerates in those countries, even banks. And that is why I am of the opinion that our system needs to be strengthened. Nobody, no external body will help to correct those problems we're having as regard the cost of production or the cost of items like drugs. It is not as a result of the government of Nigeria not doing enough. Sincerely speaking, the government is doing their bit, but the only mistake or error the government is making is not having enough people or a certain institution that monitors this investment the federal government is putting into the cost, the making life easy for businesses and supporting production in Nigeria.
Well,
Yes.
well, Patriot Desmond. Okay, your concluding comments before we wrap up the conversation here.
Yes, the cost of drugs is high in the market. There is no lie about that. But that is not because government is not doing enough, but because the government is not monitoring and implementing their positions well, and because of some little loopholes and corruption within the system that is giving rise to that. Otherwise, the government is doing enough. All we just want to beg is the manufacturer to actually complement the government's effort by letting the waivers, the tax holidays, and some other incentives that is given to them to translate in the cost of items in the market by reducing their greed.
All right, Patriot Desmond, you have just nailed the last nail on the coffin. I believe this is a fine place to leave the conversation. Quite very strong points you have laid out here. Thank you so much, as usual, for joining the program, and we wish you the very best of the rest of your day over there in Ekpe, Lagos.
Thank you so much, Shijuke, for having me.
Thank you.